If and when it is time to leave either of those, number one, you'll know. You will know without a doubt that literally there is no other option. And number two, when it's right, you'll leave from love. You will leave from love. What do I mean by that? Hey guys, I just wanted to take a quick minute to share a little message with you. I'm super passionate about creating the very best YouTube channel that Scott and I can, to share our wisdom, insights, experiences, knowledge with you to help you on your journey of spiritual growth, of finding clarity and more balance in your life. So if you could do me a huge favor, if you enjoy our content every week, if it brings value into your life, if you could please remember to like and subscribe, click the little red bell so that you're notified when we put a new episode out each week, and then comment. Let us know in the comments if the content is valuable, if there's something in there that is said that resonates, if there's something in there that helps, if there's something in there that you're like, wait a minute, I want to dive a little deeper into this. Let me know in the comments. And if you have any ideas for what would be helpful for you on your journey to becoming more whole and finding more peace in your life, let us know in the comments. We'd love to make some more content for you. See you on the other side. I have been on my own spiritual awakening for about 8 years now. My awakening started when I picked up a book called You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And it really opened up the whole world of self-help, self-healing, spirituality, spiritual growth, trauma, all the things that happen when you have a spiritual awakening. And that's what prompted mine, really. I mean, actually, most of it was because I was at a place in my life where I had gotten all the things, I did all the things that they told me I was supposed to do, and yet I found myself still really unhappy in my life. I had been married for 10 years. We had 3 kids between the two of us. I had a good job working for the state of Idaho as a case manager. We owned an Airbnb business, and we had land, we had toys and things like that. And so I was really like, I got married, I got benefits, health benefits, we have kids and dogs, and we go on family vacations, and I bought a home. I did everything that they said you're supposed to do, and yet I'm still really unhappy. Now, I had a 10-year secret pain pill addiction, just trying to keep up with my life. I had a really dysfunctional marriage. It really was not a supportive, loving marriage at all, and I knew something's wrong. I knew intuitively and deeply within me something is wrong. Like, I am not living the life I'm supposed to be living, but I was too scared to do anything else. I was like, well, my mom's been married and divorced 4 times. I don't want to do that. I have all these subconscious beliefs, I didn't know this at the time, that I'm a screw up, that I can't trust myself. So if I'm not in this marriage, I can't trust myself. I'm going to screw up my life. Something's wrong with me. I mean, all these really deep-seated original parent wounds is what I call them. And so I didn't really have a choice in my mind. It was like, this is what you're stuck with, basically. And so when I had my awakening and I started learning all these different tools, I started learning different ideas, I went, oh my gosh, this makes sense. Like, something in this resonates with me. This feels like I understand this, that your thoughts create your reality. And I always believed in God. I didn't believe in the religious God. I didn't feel comfortable in churches. I didn't believe that there was this guy with a white beard that sat up in heaven and said, well, if you do this, then you're going to hell for eternity. There was nothing in me that felt like that was accurate. But I did feel a really deep spiritual connection to God, to something. And I didn't really talk about it much, didn't share it with anyone. And so I had that foundation, I had that basis. I always said people tell me that I was very wise beyond my years, that I was psychic. But like I said, I didn't have a framework for anything else than, well, if you believe in God, then you have to live in this box of religion. if you get married and you have a good job and you do all these things, then you'll be happy. I didn't know what else to do besides them. So when I picked up the book and I started realizing all these things, I was like, oh my gosh, this really resonates for me. And so I started what we all do on the journey of my own spiritual awakening. I started meditating. I started listening to inspirational YouTube videos all the time, every day, as much as I could, testimonials. I started doing different things throughout my day. I started journaling. I started paying attention to what are the thoughts that I'm thinking? Like, what are, when I first heard that concept, like, you're not who you think you are. I'm like, how can I be anything else than who I think I am? Like, I didn't even understand the framework of the observer as opposed to the ego and that identity. And so I started just paying attention to how I felt during the day. I started changing up my routine just so I could maybe wake up a little bit more. And I started noticing, some small changes happening in me. And as that journey progressed, I started to create a community. I started changing, which was the point. I wanted to start changing. But as I started changing, the relationship with my husband got much worse. He didn't like that I was going down this path. I understand it wasn't something that made sense to him or resonated with him. There were times where, he thought I had joined a cult, which I know is a similar thing that people hear when they start on this journey. And as is very common when you begin your spiritual awakening, that you sort of can feel very isolated. You start to feel like, I don't really want to be out in the world. And I'm starting to not really be able to connect with the friends that I always could connect with and my family members. And at first it can feel really isolating because you're actually taking your attention that you're usually putting out there all the time and you're starting to pull it inwards. And you start to get like, man, I want to protect my energy and it's too much to be around people. And I don't want to talk about things like politics or news anymore. Like, that just doesn't interest me, or what so-and-so did to so-and-so. Like, I want to talk about deeper things and talk about healing. I want to do things that have more meaning to me and fulfillment. And that's what happened. And so fast forward a year, I ended up leaving my marriage after having my first huge experience with energy. And like I said, I ended up leaving my marriage. I made radical shifts in my life, and my life has never been the same. It's now, like I said, it's 7 years later, and nothing about my life is the same as it was from 7 years ago. And so in that time, I've also been coaching, mentoring as people have spiritual awakenings, or they have some sort of experience, or they're in that place I was in where they're like, I just know that there's more and I want to be able to tap into that and use that and live that and embody that more in my life and integrate it. So I've been helping people for the last 7 years navigate that. And one of the most common themes and common issues that my husband and I hear all the time is after they have a spiritual awakening, I want to leave my marriage or I want to leave my job. Usually it's those two things at the top, which is so common and so normal. And what I always say to people when they're going through this process is, if and when it is time to leave either of those, number one, you'll know. You will know without a doubt that literally there is no other option. And number two, when it's right, you'll leave from love. You will leave from love. What do I mean by that? I'll give you the example of my life and my own marriage, because I think many of you will relate. I knew that my husband and I were not healthy for each other. Like I said, I had been addicted to pain pills. We fought a lot. It was not a very healthy, loving, nurturing, building each other up relationship. I had all my issues. He had all his. I started working on mine. He didn't work on his. And so then, of course, what naturally happens, one's growing, the other isn't. And this is a normal part of the process. Everyone in your life, when you begin a spiritual awakening, will either rise up to you or they'll fall away. That's the only two potential possibilities, because that is the law of energy. It literally cannot be any other way. Once you start raising your energy, literally your baseline operation of frequency, which just means your baseline of emotions. If your baseline of emotions are victimization, stress, worry, lack, people pleasing, those are emotions you experience. You're at a baseline of literally an emotional frequency in your body that's going to be very low, and like attracts like. So you're going to attract other people that are operating at that baseline frequency. And so when you start changing that, because you start working on your shit, when you start working on your inner child stuff and healing trauma and understanding subconscious beliefs that you've held, when you start working with that, you start letting go of all those low frequency, which just means very low dense emotions, like the ones I just mentioned. When you stop feeling those, you start to rise up and you start feeling more hopeful, optimistic, creative, loving, happy, nurturing, all of these really amazing feelings that are literally a higher frequency. And so if your partner or your job isn't rising to that, you're gonna feel even more disconnected. It's a totally normal part of the process. However, where you have to be very, very, very careful in this process, and this is what we've guided so many people through when they have wanted to leave a relationship or if they wanted to leave a career or a job because they no longer resonate with it anymore, is if you are not working on your shit, no matter if you leave, you're gonna carry your shit with you and you're gonna keep creating the same exact situation. So if all of a sudden you're having a spiritual awakening and you're like, things are getting worse with my husband and I just want to run. I just want to run away from my responsibilities for my husband. Maybe it's, a really bad relationship with a child or a really bad relationship with a parent. You're going to just want to run at first. That's going to be your first instinct is I got to get away from this. I haven't had the courage or, whatever it takes to step away from that. I'm starting to feel that a little bit more. So now I just want to run. If you have not done the proper work inside of yourself to understand that you're the one that's actually been attracting those relationships, they're going to keep following you and you're going to keep creating them. It'll be a different job. It'll be the same exact scenario. The feelings will be the same. The thoughts will be the same. Everything will be the same. It's just copy and paste. The same thing with a partner. If you're running from your partner, you're going to run, and you're going to create this different partner. Same thoughts, same feelings, same situation. You're going to get angry. You're going to blame him. You're going to want to run again. So this is why I say leave from love. Okay. So in my marriage, I knew there was never a deep, like, this is my soulmate. It was never that. We had our daughter, very early on in our relationship. And as I said, as it progressed, it was like, well, this is what you do. You stay in a marriage, you don't get divorced. I'd already been divorced once. I didn't want to get divorced again. I just didn't want to be that person. I was so scared of what people would think of me. It's ultimately what held me to that relationship. And I lived in a lot of fear. It was a recreation of my childhood. I lived in a lot of fear in that relationship. And so as I started to evolve, of course, at first it was like, I wanted him to change was my first reaction. If he just changed and he did these things, then our marriage would improve. And then it was like, I just want to run. I just want to get away. But again, I was too scared. So those are the first initial knee-jerk reactions when you begin this spiritual awakening. And you'll do this with your job. Like, oh my gosh, this job is so stressful. I'm not resonating with it. I don't really care about it. I hate it. I just want to leave. It's the same exact thing. And maybe, like me, you have a knowing that this relationship was never based in a place of deep love and deep commitment and deep appreciation and a deep wanting the other person to grow, meaning an unconditional love. Not like, if you're this way, I love you, but like, if you need to go and do something, I love you that much, you need to go and do that because I want you to be happy, right? And so maybe that the job was never your end all be all, or that relationship was never your end all be all. And that's where I was. So I knew that. However, like I said, there's all sorts of reasons why I didn't want to leave. So as I started to grow and evolve, and then I moved past I need him to change, because I kept doing the inner work on myself. I kept looking at all my old patterns from childhood, how I was reacting to him, how my feelings were coming up that I thought were really his, but really I just realized that they were mine. They had nothing to do with him. And so as I did the work for about a year, this deep inner work every single day, I was meditating, like I said, I was journaling, I was talking with my mom, and we were having a lot of deep conversations around doing the inner work. And then I went to my first advanced meditation retreat. It was 4 days. This was a year into it. And I had my first major experience with energy moving through my entire body. I'd never experienced anything like it before. It was literally as if I was being plugged in to an electrical socket, and electricity, I had no control over it. It took over my entire body. It was as if my heart was literally being ripped wide open, and I was shaking and almost felt like convulsing. But I knew it was an amazing thing, and I knew I was connecting with God, with Source, with Spirit. And it told me, you know, you've never been alone. You'll never be alone. I'm always here. You've always been loved. And it just changed everything inside of me in that moment. Everything. I felt connected to God. I felt connected to everything that exists beyond the three-dimensional world. I felt connected to me and my inner child. I felt so much love in my nervous system, in my body somatically, in my mind, in my spirit, and everything was just like pure love coursing through my veins. And I went home from that workshop and I literally didn't unpack my bag. I left my marriage that night. And what I mean by when I say leave from love, when I left that night, I was not running from him. I was not angry at him. I was not blaming him. I came to a place where I appreciated and loved him for where he was at in his journey, but I loved myself so much. My frequency was so high. It was like, of course I just wouldn't live in this environment anymore and with this person anymore. It's just literally not a vibrational match for me. And there was no running. There was no blaming. There was no victimization. It was literally just such an overwhelming feeling of love that I just knew I wouldn't ever go backwards anymore. I knew if I was going back into that relationship, it would be going backwards. And I had ascended beyond that. I had transcended beyond that. I knew without a doubt that this marriage was no longer serving any of us. And when I walked out the door, I mean, there was fear, like, because I had to stand up to my husband, something that I was very scared of doing, but there was also exhilaration. I mean, I remember that night driving to my mom's and being like, I feel so free in my life for the first time, maybe ever. And I was just so happy being me. I was so happy learning myself and this newfound love and freedom within me that it wasn't out of trying to run away. I had healed those patterns in me that kept that marriage. I had healed the patterns in me that kept the dysfunction. And so when I healed those, the marriage naturally fell away. And so this is why I'm sharing this with you. If you find yourself on the journey and you've had a spiritual awakening and you're saying, I need to get out of this job, or I need to get out of this marriage, what I invite you to do, especially if you're somebody that actually does have a really good, solid foundation from your marriage, is instead of trying to run and get away from them and blame them, keep doing the work on yourself. Because I promise you, it's not about should I stay or I leave. Forget about that. Do the work on yourself, and either your job will change or your partner will change out of the blue, out of nowhere. They will rise up to where you're at. Or you will wake up one morning and go, oh my gosh, I have just transcended and ascended all the unhealthy patterns that was keeping this marriage intact, and I am free to leave. And you will leave from a place of love. You will leave from loving your partner. You will leave from loving your job, and then you will ascend to something different. And that's the only two things that can happen, but it has to be from a place of love, or you're just going to run and recreate the same things over and over and over. So my message to you today, if this is you, like I said, is keep doing the work on yourself. Don't focus on your partner needing to change. Don't focus on your job needing to change. Don't focus on, I got to get out of here, I got to leave. Focus on, how can I keep doing the inner work? How can I look at my own patterns? How can I use meditation and breath work to work within the mind and work within the body? We also utilize ketamine therapy in our process because this is going to help in that healing journey. So if you're interested in learning more about that and our process, there will be information in the description below with links. You can watch our free masterclass and how we use ketamine therapy and our quadrant theory to help you through the spiritual awakening process, to help you to create balance and inner peace so that you are creating from a place of love and not from a place of trying to run away, not from a place of being a victim, which is quadrant 2. You're doing it from a place of balance of all four quadrants in your brain. And so hopefully that helped, understanding that you have to leave from a place of love, or you don't leave at all, and whatever you're trying to leave naturally rises up to the same level of frequency. It's the only two things that can happen. And if you can trust the process and keep doing the work on yourself, I promise you will see this happen in your own life. So hopefully that added some value and helped you and answer some questions. As I said, this is the biggest thing we see here, experience when we're helping guide people through a spiritual awakening process is this right here. It's the number one. And so I wanted to talk on it and hopefully offer you some advice and wisdom on how to navigate it. I love you all. Let me know in the comments if it was helpful. And if you think it might help someone else, please share it with them. It helps us as well. I will see you next time. Lots of love.